Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Happy Friday and welcome into the Miguez Mindset here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles YouTube channel. Matt Miguez here as we get set for Super Bowl 58 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. We always like to take this week to talk to some guys who have played in the Super Bowl in the past, kind of get their thoughts on their experiences, the game this year, the game that they played in, things of that nature. I'm really excited to bring you two local legends on this episode today. First one is going to be Kevin Faulk, a three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. And then after that, Jake Delhomme, who played against the New England Patriots in one of those three Super Bowls, Super Bowl 38, as he led the Carolina Panthers in that game. One of the better Super Bowls of our time. Came down to an Adam Vinatieri field goal right at the very end. So sit back, relax, and enjoy both Kevin Faulk and Jake Delhomme right here on the Miguez Mindset. Welcome into another edition of the Miguez Mindset here on ESPN Southwest Louisiana's YouTube channel. Matt Miguez here previewing the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. We love to take this week to kind of go back and recap some past Super Bowls with local products that have had success at the NFL level, especially in the Super Bowl. And joining me today is a guy from Carencro, Louisiana, who spent 13 seasons in the NFL with the New England Patriots, capturing 3 Super Bowls during that span. It is my pleasure to welcome Kevin Faulk onto the show. Kevin, really appreciate you taking the time, man. How are you?
I'm fine, man. Thanks for having me.
So I want to, kind of go back to even before the NFL and your time at LSU. Just kind of walk me through, what that experience was like growing up in Carencro, getting to play for LSU, in the late 90s, and then making it to the NFL and having such a long career in the NFL.
Like anybody that probably done it before, a dream come true. Being able to understand now that you're older, what actually happened. And you understand now that you're an ambassador for the game to try to teach, kids coming up that want to play the game or is playing the game. So you kind of understand that, and that's the beauty of it.
You spent 13 seasons in the NFL, all of them with the New England Patriots, getting to play for Bill Belichick and, getting to play alongside the greatest quarterback in NFL history and Tom Brady. Just kind of what was that like for your career to be able to suit up with guys like that in your 13 years?
Life-changing. We try to combine sports and life all in one sentence as athletes. And it is, because it really helps you out in life, because some of the things you go through individually, team-wise, is some of the things that you're going to go through in life. So it was life-changing, to be a part and to understand who you played with. Having one of the greatest coaches of all time, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and just some of the guys you play with. Maybe one of the greatest receivers of all time, one of the greatest tight ends. It's just, it just combines and it keeps going and going. And that's what the culture that they built at New England.
We'll start with that first one. In 2001, you play against the St. Louis Rams at the time, and it was a really tight game, 20-17, the final score. There was a trend with the 3 Super Bowls that you won, Kevin, and it came down to the foot of Adam Vinatieri. Just kind of walk me through that first one and kind of the feelings that you had going through that game.
Oh, the feelings was very strong because it was in New Orleans, home state. A few years prior, I just won a state championship in that same place. And who would have think it? 2019, I'm a coach on the LSU football team, winning the national championship in the Superdome. So I think the Superdome is a good place for me. I need to have a few more events there. But having it there was awesome. In front of family, friends, and getting an opportunity to play in it. During the game, it was kind of mixed emotions because I was supposed to play a lot, and then some things happened during the course of the game. And it didn't happen, but like I said before, we treat that like life. Things going to happen in life where you got to adjust during the course of the game.
And then 2 years later, the Patriots go back to the Super Bowl, play the Carolina Panthers. And that one was kind of cool for you because On the other side with Carolina, you had Jake Delhomme as quarterback to, Acadiana products. Just talk about how special that was for you.
Oh, that was special for both our little towns, man. Karen Crow and Bro Ridge, how it made them in the spotlight just because of us two guys playing the Super Bowl. Besides that, it was a great game. It was an awesome game. Like you said, it came down to the wire. Most of our Super Bowls came down to the wire, and that was the beauty of it, the understanding of execution, the situation, knowing what's going on during the course of the game.
Now, I'll actually back up because I forgot to mention with the first one, Marshall Faulk played for the Rams in that
Right,
first one.
right.
Was there like a little family rivalry there?
We knew each other, but it wasn't like we were, like close. But it's like one of those, yes, it's fan rivalry, no matter what, because that's your cousin, and you're playing a game, and it's the biggest game in the NFL.
Chatting with Kevin Faulk here on the Miguez Mindset. And, the thing that stands out about that 3 Super Bowl run for the Patriots is the very next year in 2004, you went back to the Super Bowl. And, it's not very often that the teams get to go back to back, especially win back to back Super Bowls. And just kind of talk about that one again. Another special opponent with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, Donovan McNabb and Andy Reid as the head coach. We've seen what he's done in recent years with the Kansas City Chiefs. What impressed you about that third Super Bowl?
There was a bunch of things that impressed me about the third Super Bowl. For us as a team, we were trying to actually repeat after the first one, and being young, not understanding, didn't understand how teams were going to be gunning for us, and we didn't even make the playoffs that next year. So that was something on our mind after that next Super Bowl that we won. That, hey, look, we got to really focus, chime in, and make it back to the Super Bowl. But on the opposite side of that was I don't know if you remember, Terrell Owens was on that team too, and he broke his ankle, and he came back for that game. And for me, it lets me know what type of player Terrell Owens is. I know he does all the talking and everything, but when it comes down to playing football, he's a football player, and he showed me what type of football player he was that day.
Now, Kevin, one thing that stands out when I do these interviews is a lot of people remember the week leading up to it more than they remember the game itself. So what do you remember about the experiences, all the media and getting to bond with your teammates during that week leading up to the game?
Crazy thing is, our coach has been there before. He had been there before with the New York Giants. So he kind of prepared us for it, prepped us for it. That made just like any other game that we was playing in the course of the season. He kind of prepared us for it. It's crazy because, like I tell people a lot of times, we may prepare for situations during the course of the week of practice, and that actual situation will happen in a game, and you're like, how did you know that? So it's just one of those things. It was natural, routine.
And the other question that I have about your past Super Bowl experiences before we get to this one, to this year's Super Bowl, is winning your 3 Super Bowls early on in your career like you did. What did that do for you, later in your career, becoming, one of the veteran guys and sharing those experiences with your younger teammates later in your career?
Later in your career, it's awesome to have won Super Bowls, but it's kind of like the model we had. What's next? Trying to win another one. You're trying to win another one. But the leadership, when younger guys come in, they really respect you. But at the same time, you got to give that respect back to them as well. But like I said, the leadership part from it, it really gets you going.
Looking at this year's Super Bowl, obviously we talked about Andy Reid with the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day, now coaching the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes looks to be a generational type quarterback. And then the San Francisco 49ers just running a very crisp offensive system with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. What are your thoughts about this game?
I love the matchup. It's one of those maybe 4 or 5 teams that we all probably thought that was going to make it to the Super Bowl without one of the other 2 or 3 knocking them out. So it's one of that matchup like you wanted to see. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs done it. We can all say in the middle of the season we was like, they're not gonna make it this year. They're not playing that way to make it to the Super Bowl, and then they just turn on the switch. We always say you can't turn on the switch, but it looked like they turned on the switch and it clicked at the right time for the 49ers during the course of the season. They started off on fire. Then they lost those few games, and it kind of looked like the total opposite. It was kind of like they were going down. They were going down, and then they came back and fired them. But for me, people laugh at me when they ask me what I think about the game this year, and it's pretty much for the past few years, whoever can run the ball is going to win the game. Whoever can run the ball consistently is going to win the game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. And both teams have pretty good rushing attacks. Obviously, the Niners have Christian McCaffrey. But look, the Kansas City Chiefs, I would never count out Isaiah Pacheco. He's a very talented running back and a guy that can make a lot of things happen for that Kansas City Chiefs offense. Kevin Faulk joining us here on the Miguez Mindset. Once again, 3-time Super Bowl winner with the New England Patriots. The Chiefs and the 49ers face off this Sunday in Super Bowl 58. Kevin, really appreciate you taking the time, man. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, man.
Joining me now on the Miguez Mindset podcast is former Carolina Panthers quarterback Jake Delhomme, also former Raging Cajun great. Jake, thanks for taking the time, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's always gets very exciting on Super Bowl week. There's no doubt.
Yeah, anytime you get to play in the Super Bowl, a lot of emotions come back this time of year. And this year's got to be particularly special for you, considering it's been 20 years since Super Bowl 38. Looking back at it now, what do you look back on the most about that time?
Man, it's like I remember vividly pretty much everything about it, to be quite honest. And you'd like to say, I would like to say, I wish I could have enjoyed it a little bit more, but we were so one-track minded. Our football team, it was a business trip, and that's how we approached it. And so we didn't do the parties, we didn't do the nightlife and things of that nature that was going on in Houston, and it wasn't a great amount or at least that we had heard of, because we had curfew and things like that. So, but everything else. I remember everything about it, the week, the practice fields. We practiced at the University of Houston and the hotel where we stayed at, and we went away the night before the game. Just everything was great. And we were the underdog, and you had to answer that question anytime there was media, which was not nearly what it is now, but it was a great amount, and it was certainly every day. So it just kind of fed into that hunger that we had, that we were going to upset New England.
And obviously this was a legendary game, 32-29. Those 3 Super Bowls that the Patriots won in that stretch, all 3 of them came down to the foot of Adam Vinatieri. But I have to ask, was that one of the toughest defenses that you've probably ever played against?
No, it was. And, everybody wants to remember Tom Brady. And yes, he's unbelievable. But they were more known for their defense at that time. New England's defense was lights out, to say the least. And just to think about it, when you go from Bobby Hamilton, Willie McGinnis, Mike Vrabel, Ted Bruschi, Teddy Bruschi, Ted Washington, Richard Seymour. I'm trying to think if I'm going to miss somebody else.
Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, you had Vrabel on one side, and then you go to the secondary, Rodney Harrison, Tyrone Poole, Ty Law, Asante Samuel, I think was also there. It was a who's who amongst defensive football players. And there was just this big, large football team. And it was a 3-4 defense, which we necessarily didn't see so much of that in the NFC at that time. It was more so the smaller Tampa 2 type looks. And that's what the Saints played, and that's what Tampa played in Atlanta. So we didn't see a lot of these 3-4 looks, whereas the AFC, there was a little bit more of that. And it wasn't so much 11 personnel or 3 wide receivers. Yes, there were some, but that wasn't – it was different back then. It was true smash mouth power type football. And the defense was just this large defense that when you look from left to right, right to left, it didn't matter. There was a template, so to speak, of what a 3-4 defense was supposed to look like. And that's what those guys look like.
Now, Jake, looking back at that game for New England, Kevin Faulk played for the Patriots at that time. and I got to talk to Kevin earlier in the week, and he talked about how special it was not only for the NFL to have that type of game, but for this area, him being from Karen Crow, you being from the Lafayette Bro Bridge area, how special was that moment for you two getting able to play against each other in the Super Bowl?
Listen, it was great. I think we appreciated it honestly more after, because going back to it, leading up to it, you're so focused. And thank goodness there's 2 weeks, because the first week, really and truly, the first few days are ticket requests and logistics and family and things like that. And you're just trying to accumulate everything. The team's given the itinerary. This is where we're staying at. The family will stay here. So you're just kind of doing all that. I think it was more so after that we probably we reminisce or talked about it a little bit more. Two guys we probably grew up 5 miles apart from each other to both play in the Super Bowl in Houston, which was only 3 hours away. We both had a ton of family members that were able to come to the football game. So, yeah, it was great. It was something that, at the time or in that moment, I know for me, I didn't really truly, how big it is, I guess you could say, but I never thought of it that way. We were a good football team that was on a good run, and you were just looking to finish the job.
Chatting with Jake Delhomme here on the Miguez Mindset. One more question before I get to this year's game. What do you, if you had to circle in on one thing that you remember most about that experience, what would you say it is?
I remember, I think the thing that, and it was told to us by Ricky Prohl. Ricky Prohl was our veteran receiver, and Ricky had already played in 2 Super Bowls in St. Louis. One when they won the Super Bowl, and then the other one when they got beat, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, when they got beat by Adam Vinatieri kick. And one thing leading up to the game, before we left Charlotte, Ricky talked to the football team about, guys, listen, you have to be careful when you go out to warm up for the game. And what he meant by that, he said, your emotions are going to be like something you've never experienced in your life. And so he said, you got to slow down when you warm up. And you hear that and you kind of, okay, yeah, I can see how you're going to be a little more amped up. But it was so true. I would always go out. We go out an hour before the game as a team. And there's different times you go out. The linemen go out, the specialists and stuff like that. But I always went out about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours prior, just with my sweats on and just to go throw a little bit. I had a little routine that I did with our equipment manager. And I remember it used to take a little while to warm up. The body's, tight and stuff like that. The first pass I threw, I'll never forget. I threw it and it was like, oh my gosh, this is what he means. I need to slow down. I felt alive. My spine was tingling. It's like you're floating on air. And you knew this is something different. And it's not a one-sided crowd where you get booed when you come out, because it's really a neutral crowd, so to speak. But you just knew it was so different. And so that was very different. But when we came out as a team, we're in the tunnel and we were introduced as a team. I don't remember the jog out because it felt like we were just floating, and grown men just crying, the emotions, because you're so emotional, because this is the pinnacle of your career and this is where you're supposed to be at, all the hard work. So, man, I think that was something that just always kind of stuck with me. It's just those emotions that you felt. And then, to be honest, the game kicks off, and then next thing you know, the game's over. It flies by. It was just playing a regular football game.
Now, Jake, looking at this Sunday's game between the Chiefs and the 49ers, obviously, Kansas City looking to go back-to-back. Patrick Mahomes has been incredible to begin his career. And then on the other side, the San Francisco 49ers, they've looked like the favorite for most of the year. What are your thoughts on this game? What do you think about the matchup?
Listen, I think the final 4 teams that were playing, I think you could have substituted Buffalo in there for some of the other AFC teams, and those are the best 5 teams in football, in my opinion. And listen, I think San Francisco is the better football team, but the Kansas City Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. I felt the exact same way last year. I thought Philadelphia had an overall better team, but Patrick Mahomes was the great. To me, he's the equalizer. I think he's just different than anything we've ever seen. I don't think San Fran has played great in the playoffs, to be honest. I think we saw the Green Bay game, and they had some opportunities. They turned the ball over on downs. They missed field goals. They had opportunities, and San Fran had to come back. And then you watch against Detroit. Detroit had the lead, and Detroit should have been up 3 scores at a certain point in that game. They probably should have taken points, and San Fran was able to kind of come back again. And I'm not so sure they can still do that. I'm anxious to see if San Fran sticks to the running game. Whereas Baltimore did not whatsoever. That was total kind of mismanagement on their part, not sticking to the run game. And Patrick Mahomes, he's just so different. We've seen all these plays where he can make all the different arm angles, all the throws, and he's so accurate. But the Baltimore game, it was like, okay, we have a lead. The weather's terrible, and I'm not going to put the ball in harm's way, and we're going to win the game no matter what. Our defense is locked in. And so that's what I'm anxious to see how this game truly plays out. Will it get to be shootout type mode, or is it going to be a team that kind of gets a lead on somebody and then they're just going to kind of play it close to the vest? I think the secondary for the Chiefs are outstanding. I think some of their blitz packages are great. Spagnuolo does. But what the 49ers do, so much is predicated. They're telling you what they're going to do. They're going to line up in condensed formations, and they're going to have a shift in a motion, and they're going to go through their reads. It's not going to be more of a drop back and have to read a defense type of look. San Fran's going to attack you, and they're going to just kind of worry about what they do first. So Brock Purdy's going to have to play well all 4 quarters, in my opinion. I think he's played well toward the latter part of the Green Bay game, and he played well in the second half against Detroit, especially with his legs. So San Fran's a talented football team. I don't think they've played great the last 2 weeks, but Kansas City, it's just Patrick Mahomes. I just think he's just different than anything we've ever seen.
Jake, lastly, Elijah Mitchell is going to suit up for the San Francisco 49ers, another South Louisiana product. What does that say about the talent in this area, knowing we've had so many guys in the past suit up in a Super Bowl?
Listen, I think it's great, and I love it. I was lucky enough to meet Elijah when he was in high school at Erath High School and got to know him pretty well through the UL days. And I was actually with him this summer at a workout facility, and so was able to be around him a few times this summer. And it was great when he got in to score that touchdown in the championship game. And there's a group of us that had a text from Brandon Mitchell, his uncle, or his cousin, from out of Abbeville High, played at Texas A&M, was a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots. So I was able to get a text. Brandon was in the stands, and it was a video from the end zone where Elijah was able to score. So I just think it's so special. It's so awesome. And yes, and I love Christian McCaffrey through his days in Carolina and getting to know him. But I'd like to see Elijah get a few carries in the game if possible. He's a dynamic running back, and it's just so great that a local product from right here locally played at UL, was a great Raging Cajun, didn't leave, didn't transfer, and finished out his career, and he'll have a great legacy at UL, and now he's playing in a Super Bowl. I think it's awesome.
Jake Delhomme, former Raging Cajuns quarterback and quarterback for the Carolina Panthers in Super Bowl 38, joining us here on the Miguez Mindset. Jake, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
I will enjoy it, man. I think it's going to be a great game. I think we're, if you asked anybody before the season, it's Kansas City and San Fran in the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody would have thought otherwise. Okay, that's fine. That's probably right. So I'm looking forward to it, and just hope we have a really good and competitive game that goes down to the wire.
Yeah, it should be a great one, Jake. Appreciate it again, man.
Okay, Matt. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kevin Faulk and Jake Delhomme. Again, Super Bowl coming up this Sunday between the Chiefs and the 49ers. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESPN Southwest Louisiana. And as always, follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA. We'll be back next week talking college baseball and recapping the Super Bowl right here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1.